Blog Talk Radio.
My husband and I became parents earlier this year, and being able to stay at home and watch our sweet little girl grow up means so much to me. But times are tough for us financially, and we have been debating whether or not I should go back to work. I just can't bear the thought of being away from our little one. I can go back to my old job, but the hours are so long, and I'll be away from home so much. I tried searching for a part-time job or a stay-at-home job, but I was not having luck. Then I saw an ad for flexhourjobs.com. Flexhourjobs.com is free to use and specializes in finding flexible hour and work-from-home job opportunities in over 50 categories. Flexhourjobs.com offers resume building services and interview coaching for those who have been out of the workforce for some time. I am so glad I found flexhourjobs.com. It has helped me to find a great stay-at-home job that allows me to spend more time with my daughter. Visit flexhourjobs.com and start your search today.
Well, hello, everyone. I welcome you back to the Flex Hour Jobs radio show. And this is Jacqueline Sloboda, and I'm your host of the show. We're airing today on Blog Talk Radio as well as Radio Ear Network. We air globally to listeners in over 148 countries worldwide, and we're now in syndication with local community radio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You can check out our podcast on iTunes under News Talk Radio/Radio Ear Network. Now, if you're not familiar with Flex Hour Jobs, we're an employment website specializing in flexible scheduled jobs, telecommuting, part-time, project and seasonal work, jobs that are not traditionally 9 to 5 in an office. And I founded Flex Hour Jobs when I was frustrated by the fact that there were very few options for women like me who had had to give up their careers and identities in order to have kids and care for a family. And I looked all around me at the women and the baby boomers not ready to retire, trying to host candle and jewelry parties in order to contribute to family budgets. I felt really compelled to try to do something, and so I founded flexhourjobs.com. Access to the website is free to job seekers, and we screen all there to make sure that they are legitimate. So whether it's entry-level or professional positions, any category, we post U.S. and Canadian jobs, and I urge you to check us out. So today's show, we are talking about 4 great tips to boost your career advancement. And we have a very special guest with us today. We have Meera Shah, who's one of the top career coaches in the UK, and she's going to be talking about her program of the 4 fastest ways to advance your career. And Meera is the creator of the website MeeraCareerCoaching.com. She has a corporate background in finance, ranging from Unilever to Goldman Sachs and HSBC. And she's parlayed her successful financial career into a career coaching service. So Meera has created the RID coaching model, which blends a mix of both hard and soft strategies of career development. And today she will describe a little bit about her program and her workshops. So, hello, Meera. Are you there?
I am here, and I'm really excited to be on your show. Thank you.
Oh, terrific. Nice to have you here. So just before we get to your program, being that you are from the UK and we love having international guests and international speakers, just tell us and our listeners a little bit about your background, how you transitioned from being in the finance area to being a career coach.
Yeah, sure. So as you rightly mentioned, my background was all in the corporate environment. I'm originally from Kenya, and then I moved to the UK like about 8 years ago. And really, I've always worked in the corporate environment. But about a few years ago, I've always been interested in personal development. And I've been really lucky through a lot of my friends that my career's I've been able to progress my career. And I learned a lot through my self-development and through my friends. And as I started getting older, I wanted to work for myself, and I wanted the flexibility. And I didn't really want to work in the corporate environment so much anymore, but I wanted to help people to advance their careers the way I'd advance my careers and all the help I've got and all the self-help tools I've got. So I combined my passion for personal development and helping people along with my corporate experience, and I became a career coach, and it was just a nice transition from working for someone to working for myself, but using both those skills nicely blended into career coaching, and it just blends really well together. So I did that about 4 years ago, and I started as a life coach. I did a coaching certification, and now I've become a professional career coach.
Excellent. That's very exciting, a very exciting story. So now you do have the flexibility of working for yourself and working from home, do you, quite a bit as well?
I do, and it fits nicely with what your introduction was, where you were saying, you know, if you have other priorities or, you know, as you grow older, I think your priorities change for quite a lot of people, and you want that flexibility. You want to work from home. You want to be able to do other interests, because a lot of people get other ideas or interests that they want to develop as well. So this is a really nice blend of being able to work for myself, still using the corporate environment a little bit, but giving me that flexibility and freedom that I want, and I think what your show is all about as well.
Excellent. And in the UK, is there quite a focus on workplace flexibility? Do a lot of companies use it to their advantage and offer flexible work schedules?
Yes, it's a bit weird because if you're a permanent staff and you've been working in the corporate environment for a long time, they really do encourage flexibility. So they really encourage, especially for women and mothers, they encourage flexibility. But increasingly, I've seen that people can do 4-day weeks. They can do a certain number of hours. They can also flex their hours. So the standard would be 9 to 5. But a lot of companies now allow you to do 8 to 4 or 7 to 3. So that means if you have to pick up kids, if you have to travel, they don't mind as long as you do the hours and get the work done. So they are encouraging a lot of flexibility, which is quite nice. And I think it also helps the firms because they've suddenly realized, you know, people do need that flexibility and they want to be a preferred employer, and it helps them attract the best experience.
Exactly.
And then on top of it, what I've also noticed is that they allow working from home quite a lot. And an example I'll give you is it's just cheaper for firms to let people work from home because offices are so expensive now. And a lot of people have, you know, with technology, you know, they can just set you up at home and you save on the travel costs, you save on the travel time. And actually, most of the teams I've worked in have been pretty global teams. So even if I go into the office in London, 3/4 of my team isn't based in London anyway. So it doesn't make that much of a difference where I work from anymore.
That's right. That's how our world is. The technology allows us to work from anywhere if we are focused enough and organized enough, right?
Exactly, and that's what's really nice for firms. It's cheaper to let people work from home. It's a win-win situation, really, because then people save on the travel time, they're comfortable in their own homes, and they just get on and get things done. It means if you have to log out for an hour or do an errand and come back and log back on, that's also fine. So it's really a win-win.
It is a win-win.
And it really is. And I'll give you an example. My last role, I was working at a firm, and it was a bank, and there was a team of 8 of us, and I was in London. 2 people were based in Manchester. 2 people were based in Coventry. 1 was based in Lithuania, and 2 were based in India.
That's
so
amazing.
Really, it was completely remote working, you know. There was just no point going in. I was the only one in London. So I'd go in every now and then to touch base and social interaction, but it made no difference when I was home or in the office.
Exactly. Yeah.
The only challenge around that is, I'll cut you short, but the only challenge around that is really the time differences. That's the tricky bit to work through, really.
That's true. That's true. Very, very good. And tell us too, what is the employment or unemployment situation in the UK right now? How is it looking?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's still pretty. I hate to be so negative, but it's still pretty gloomy. Unemployment rates are really high, and we had a budget that was just announced yesterday, and the forecasts for unemployment are meant to go up. Inflation is still going to stay high, and actually growth forecasts have been slashed. So I think we're still not out of the recession. And I think globally, I work in the banking sector, but that's really kind of where it starts, and the rest of, everybody else tends to follow. And we're still just seeing announcement of lots of cuts going on, because Barclays announced quite a lot of cuts earlier this year. UBS announced late last year. And so we're still hearing a lot of job cuts being announced. Yeah. And then I just know it will just follow on in the rest of the industry. So really, I think people really need to find flexible solutions and, kind of stay ahead of the game. And if you have a job, it really, at the moment, you have to really treat it like gold. It's just so precious at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's very similar here.
Is that the same in the U.S.? Yeah. Is that the same in the U.S.?
It is very much the same. Even though they are saying that we are out of the recession, it really doesn't seem that we are out of the recession when you look at what is happening with homes and with companies, and basically companies are not putting the budgets together to hire additional workers. It's not looking as positive as it could. But like
the problem is they're really scared, because even if they feel they're out of the recession, they just don't want to take that chance and then have to cut again. So
exactly.
Companies are just being cautious, because, this has been going on for about 3 years, and they don't want to land into more trouble.
Yeah, I agree. So look,
and probably the same as the UK. There's a lot of regulation, and a lot of companies are being fined for things in the past, because the regulators are now coming in tough. So they're also very scared of fines and saving money for fines, which I guess is similar in the US, is it?
It's very much the same, exactly. The regulators are very slow to take firm action to change the system, and therefore, it has a big impact on the amount of hiring done, definitely.
And so now the problem is the regulators are under a lot of pressure to be firm, so they're now trying to prove a point as well.
Yes, that's for sure. Yeah. Okay, so let's get to your coaching model, Meera. You have the RID coaching model, and what does that stand for?
So it's there's 3 stages. The first stage, the R, is the reflect. The second stage is imagine, the I, and D is do. And why my model's a bit special and a little bit different to a lot of other coaching models or career models out there is the first stage, reflect, is all about making sure you're in the right state of mind. And that's the internal piece. I always say to people, it doesn't matter what's been going on in your life. If you're not in the right state of mind, if you're not feeling good, if your vibrations aren't high, there is no point proceeding with anything. Let's just get that state right, feel good, feel grounded, get your self-esteem high, and then let's talk about, going out job hunting and getting the goals. So that's really the first step is the most important for me. Then, of course, imagine is all around the goal-setting piece, and then the do is all the actioning.
Excellent. Now, you can't imagine going out to interview for jobs or readying yourself without the self-esteem and feeling strong. So I very much agree with that. Very much agree.
And really, I've noticed through all the clients I've done with, if your self-esteem isn't high, your CV, the way you write your CV will just reflect that. The words you'll use, the way you'll write your CV, it will just come through when you phone recruiters, when you phone agents. that message will just come through. And in such a competitive market, ironically, it needs to be even higher and even punchier, and you really need to stand out.
Exactly. And Meera, what do you suggest with people in order to increase their self-esteem? How do they go about starting that?
Yeah, so I always get asked that question. And in fact, when I coach people, I'll say, just take a minute and just rate yourself 1 out of 10, how high you think your self-esteem or your confidence is at this point. And very few people will be at a 10 being the highest, And then people will be like, thanks, now that I've recognized I've got low self-esteem, what do I do about it? So really, there's a lot of tips. There's a lot of books out there. But I can give you 2 quick ways. One is affirmations. And affirmations are they came about, athletes use affirmations to say, I'm going to win that medal or I'm going to break that record. So I would say find an affirmation. Yeah, find an affirmation. An affirmation is a really short, quick statement that you repeat to yourself over and over again until your subconscious and your body and your mind start believing it. So my favorite ones tend to be things like, I deserve more money, I am amazing, I love and accept myself. Those are my 3 favorite ones, to be honest.
Excellent.
And so then how many times a day should we repeat these affirmations? Let me ask you, what do you think it is?
Probably 10.
No, at least 200 times a day.
Really? Interesting.
Yes, and that's why they need to be short and sharp. It's like the first thing you say when you jump out of bed. It's the last thing you say before you go to bed. And all throughout the day, you just keep saying that. You just keep saying that. Every time you have a negative thought, you just shift it with that positive statement. And if you do it for 40 days and your subconscious really gets it, you just feel different. So I urge all listeners to try it. It's really powerful.
I imagine that it is. Excellent. So,
then there's lots of things people can read up. There's visualizations that you can do. You can hire a coach. You can hire any kind of help. Exercise is another good one.
Yeah.
You need to just do a lot of things to boost it up. Yeah.
Self-esteem, exactly. Excellent. Okay, so in your step number 2, imagine. Tell us about that.
Imagine is like now you're feeling really good, your self-esteem is high, and it's almost like, when you're like really young, like 18, 19, and you believe you can really conquer the world, you should be feeling really good again, and your boundaries should be stretched. That's when you set a goal. And you set yourself some goals which are higher than what you'd normally set yourself. And I always say to people, imagine putting your hand up. That's where you'd normally set your goal. Now imagine putting your hand up another inch, and most people can do that. And then your goal should be still a little bit, another inch higher, where it's just a little bit out of reach, but it's reachable. That's where you should set your goals.
Amazing.
So we'll be working on, so you kind of stretch yourself a bit more, and then when it's just that little bit out of reach, go for it. That's your goal. It needs to be exciting and stretching, Otherwise, there's no point setting a goal. You're just going to stay where you are.
Exactly.
And then the third step is the do, which is all about taking action. And then I say to people, look, your self-esteem is high, the goal has been set. Let's not question the goal. Now let's not think about all the internal stuff. Let's assume it's right. And now really it's the external stuff about just actioning things. You've got to strike things when the iron's hot. You've got to ride the momentum before it dips again. And when you're in the flow, it's funny how things just happen, and that momentum really just carries you, when you're in that state.
Sure.
And it's really about just action. And it's funny because by the time people set the goal, they're ready to action anyway. It kind of just happens.
Right. Now, Meera, for your clients, how often do your clients tend to meet with you, or do you do telephone consults as well?
Yeah, so most of my thing is either phone or Skype is much better these days for international. So most of the coaching I do is actually on Skype, and normally people sign up for 6 to 9 sessions because that's kind of enough. Because once you set the goal and we've done a list of a couple of actions, then people go off and do it on their own. It's just that initial support they need to kind of break the pattern they're in sometimes. You just need that little boost. And I always say to people, it's like imagine climbing a ladder. You know, just to get on the ladder, you need a bit of encouragement. And you can still get off it really quickly while you're still on rungs 1 and 2. But once you're on rungs 3, 4, 5, then most people just, you know, get going.
Sure.
That's the bit you need the boost with. So, yeah, really, and I always say the optimum coaching tends to be either every 7 days or every 10 days, because that's enough time to go off and do some actions and make change. But then it doesn't kill the momentum, because you really need to keep the momentum going.
Right. And I imagine after your training, it can become habitual and routine and part of a person's life.
Absolutely. And the other thing about using a coach is if you turn up week after week not having done your actions, you know, you'll be challenged and asked, do you really want this? Because it doesn't feel like you want it. And then, you know, you have to be really honest with yourself.
Exactly. Huh. Now, Meera, what is the different? What is different about this model versus other career models that are out there?
So I really think the big thing I focus in is first getting that transition state right. So a lot of people would come and they'll want to just, you know, say, oh, I just want a job. Can you help me with my CV? And I'll be like, yeah. And then I'll read the CV and I'll go, how confident do you feel? And then the answer is generally quite low, because by the time they're seeking help, they know they need that boost. And the difference with my model is I really make sure it's a lot about just get your internal state right, believe in yourself again. And that's the big state that's different. I think a lot of career models just work on let's set a goal and let's go in action and these are the options. But the difference is that internal state for me. That's really important.
I understand that fully. And I suppose practice can make perfect as well as anything, correct? More practicing your model as well as practicing interviews, practicing, promoting yourself. The more you do it, the better.
Yeah, and so that's all the stuff, you know, once the CV's right. I help with, once the internal state right, I definitely help with CVs. I help with interview practice. I help with job searches. If there's presentations as part of the interviews, I help with all that as well. Right. And sometimes I even help people. I've helped people who, if they've had a time away from a job or they've gone for a job that's a bit higher than what they want, and just how to present themselves, how to conduct meetings, asking for help, just that little bit of support. Excellent.
You mentioned on your website altering your transition state with the affirmations. So can you just give us an example?
Yes, it's what I was saying. So, for example, you know, the affirmations are, so the transition state I talk about is your vibration or your self-esteem or your energy levels, all that's linked to really your self-esteem or confidence. So the affirmations are the short, sharp statements that you can use for 40 days that I talked about earlier. So, right. You know, you might say, I deserve more money, I'm amazing, I love and accept myself, anything that resonates to you, but shifts you out of where you're feeling into like, actually, I'm really good at this. And say 200 times for 40 days, and then after 40 days, evaluate where you're feeling, and it will definitely be higher, I can guarantee it. And a really good trick is to do it in front of the mirror. It's even more powerful.
Right. Practice closure as well, right?
Absolutely. So if you do nothing else, I would really tell anyone, any area of your life, just create a quick affirmation 200 times a day. It will really change your life.
How often is 200 times a day? Every 10 minutes or so?
Well, to be honest, the statements shouldn't be more than a couple of seconds, right? Like, I am
Sure.
really amazing is about 2-3 seconds. So it's about, 200, let's double it, like 500 seconds a day. It's really not that much. So it's kind of like, you might say it 10-15 times before you go to bed, 10-15 times when you get up. I use it as my screensavers. I put it as phone reminders that beep back at me. So continuously throughout the day, you're just saying it 10-15 times. And it's just the main thought you carry with you all the time then.
Right. That is exciting. I think this is something that I'm going to try.
Please try it and let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear if it works for you. Excellent.
Okay, so any major thought that you would like to leave with our listeners that want to improve their careers?
I would just say, don't limit yourself in your thinking. And if sometimes, you're in a gloomy state, and it's very easy if you've not been working or been out of work for a while to feel a bit down, just recognize that that's not you. That's just a transition state of where you've been, just based on the recent experience you have. And just remind yourself, actually, I'm amazing. I'm just feeling like this because of the experience I've had recently. And change is hard for everyone anyway. And then just shift that and just remember your values and then keep sight of your goals and just know you're worth so much more. Like each and every one of us is just worth so much more than what we generally go for. And just remember that.
Very, very well put. I'm excited over what you've just talked about. Very, very nice.
Yeah, and one other little tip that's always helped me all through my career is I always have friends or I always connect up with people who are more successful than I am or are where I want to go. And then I just watch how they think and how they don't limit themselves. And I'm like, oh, no, I need to start thinking like that. And that really helps as well.
Yeah, we read a lot about that, having a mentor or someone who you look up to and using that person as a model. Very, very good.
And I know it's cliched, like you say, you read about it a lot, but I think it's written about a lot because it really does work.
Yes. So, Meera, do you want to just repeat your contact information for our listeners, your website, your contact information?
Yeah, sure. So if you go on my website, it's www.meeracareercoaching.com. And on there, on the events page, there's something called my 4 tips. And these tips are free. And they go into more detail about, obviously, the 3 steps I've talked and the 4 fastest ways to advance your career. So they're free tips. So I would encourage, if anyone just wants some free tips and want to read up, go on my website, sign up to these free tips. And, of course, all my contact information is on there. So if anyone wants a Skype call or to coach, then they can just contact me through my website.
Okay, terrific. Well, we thank you very, very much, Meera, today for your contributions. And hopefully our listeners have found it as helpful as I have. And hopefully you'll keep in touch with us in terms of how your program is evolving. And maybe you can join us again soon.
That sounds really good. And if anyone just has any questions of anything I've talked about today that wasn't clear, I'd be happy if they email me, and I'd be happy to email them back and clarify something that wasn't clear or they wanted to know more about.
Okay, terrific. Well, thank you, Meera, and thank you, listeners, for listening today, and we will be back next week.
Thank you.
Several years ago, I retired from my job as an engineer of a large automobile manufacturer. I worked there for 35 years and enjoyed my work very much. But after a couple of years of not working, I realized I missed having a job, and I set out to find a part-time job or a seasonal job with flexible hours that would allow me to see my grandkids. I read the newspaper and went to job fairs, but I couldn't find a job that interested me or one that would allow me to work part-time. I was beginning to wonder if this was a good idea. Then my daughter told me about flexhourjobs.com. FlexHourJobs.com is free to use and specializes in finding flex-hour and work-from-home job opportunities in over 50 categories. FlexHourJobs.com screens all their job listings, protecting job seekers from work-at-home scams, and also offers resume-building services and interview coaching for those who have been out of the workforce for some time. By using FlexHourJobs.com, I was able to find a job as an instructor of engineering technology at the local career school. Visit FlexHourJobs.com and start your search today.